Hello everybody, Trevor here. In the Thomas universe, there are 24 seasons total, not counting the reboot. Some of them are really good, some are bad, while the other ones are just okay. My top two favorite eras of the show are the classic series by Burt Allcroft and the Renaissance era by Andrew Brenner. But today, I'm going to discuss my top 5 classic seasons of the show. This one was requested by LegoFan65, so shout out to him, and I suggest that you watch his Childhood In series. Trust me, it's really good. Also, I was originally going to do a top 25 or 30 classic Thomas episodes, but because there are so many of them that I really love, I decided to make it quicker by doing a top 5 classic seasons instead. In other words, it's very hard for me to decide which one of these episodes is my most favorite of all time. In fact, I love almost all of them. Now without further ado, let's begin my brand new top 5. Number 5, Season 1. Season 1, the season that started it all. What I love about this season is that it properly introduces the main characters including Thomas, Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, and Toby. It's really hard for me to decide which one of these Season 1 episodes is my favorite because I like all of them. But my most favorite of them all has to be the Flying Kipper, mainly because of the dark-looking crash at the climax. I thought that was really cool. But thankfully, Henry got repaired and received his new shape at the end. When it comes to the narration, I always prefer Ringo Starr over George Carlin for this particular season because he was the very first narrator of the show, and I agree with LegoFan65 on that. But the reason this is low on the list is because it's the very first season, and the writing itself was pretty simple compared to Season 2, which I'll get to in a little bit. And as much as I still love the first 7 episodes of Season 1, but I like The Adventure Begins the best for 3 reasons. 1. It has voice actors unlike the original. 2. It has nice additions like Glenn the Coffee Pot Engine, who doesn't appear until the very end, by the way. And 3. I love the fact that they made James originally black instead of red from the start because that's how it was in the original books. Number 4, Season 2. A lot of fans consider this the best season of the classic era, mainly because it was Ringo Starr's final season to narrate before he got replaced by Michael Angelis and George Carlin. Also, it had new and memorable characters such as Duck, Donald, Douglas, and Diesel, just to name a few. But for me, I consider this number 4 because it's the second season of the show, and like Season 1, I prefer Ringo Starr's narration for the most part since this was his second and final season to narrate. However, I do enjoy some of George Carlin's narrations such as the episodes with Donald and Douglas, which are some of my favorite episodes of this particular season. But there are some George Carlin episodes I think are a bit off for me. For instance, I don't really like his narrations for Pop Goes the Diesel and Diesel's Devious Deed, because his Diesel growl isn't as threatening as Ringo's version. Yeah, I think Ringo Starr does a better Diesel growl than George. No offense. Number 3, Season 5. I was originally going to put this as number 1 mainly because I liked Alec Baldwin's narration of this particular season. But I decided to put it as number 3 because if you guys watch my top 3 favorite narrators video, then you know that Alec Baldwin was my second favorite narrator of the show. What I like about Alec Baldwin is that he made seasons 5 and 6 very suspenseful and intense. It really gets me hyped up for an exciting adventure. One of my favorite episodes is Stepney Gets Lost, where he gets lost and accidentally ends up at the smelters with Ari and Bert. The reason I love this episode so much was the fact that Baldwin gave Stepney a Cockney accent, which in my opinion suits him perfectly. Another one of my favorite episodes was Rusty and the Boulder. I love Boulder's intense theme as well as the explosion at the end of the episode. It's not very common to have explosions in Thomas and Friends, but it is more common in Tugs, which is the sister series of the franchise. If I could think of one more, it would be Busy Going Backwards. I love this episode as well because of Toad going fast backwards because of the troublesome trucks and ends up plunging into a muddy pool. Man, that was a fun episode. In addition, I thought Alec Baldwin's British impressions for Oliver and Toad suit them very well. I mean, they aren't perfect British accents, but I can tell that he's at least trying in that season. And furthermore, I love a lot of the new TV series exclusive characters in this season, such as Cranky, Ari and Bert, the Horror Lorries, Derek, and of course, Bertram, who I think deserves more character development along with many other minor characters. At least Cranky, Ari, and Bert were able to survive the test of time unlike the other Season 5 characters, which is a shame because I would love to see Bertram, Thumper, and Derek again, but with voice actors. Number 2 goes to Season 3. This was George Carlin's very first season to narrate, that is, if you discount his re-narrations of Seasons 1 and 2. What I love about this season is that it first aired in the same exact year I was born, which was in 1991. One of my favorite new characters at that time was Mavis. I've already mentioned why I liked Mavis in the last 2 top videos, so go back and check them out. The 2 Mavis episodes are some of my favorites of Season 3, but I also love the ones with Oliver the Great Western Engine, such as Escape. I like Escape because it's so suspenseful, exciting, and adventurous, especially with that jump scare in the middle of the episode. I also thought George Carlin does a pretty good job giving Oliver a New York accent in the US dub. Before I get to my number 1 pick, here are a couple honorable mentions. Season 6. First of all, it got beat out by Season 5. Secondly, even though I still enjoyed that particular season, but it's not as good as the previous season in terms of Alec Baldwin's narration. Also, the reason for his laziness was because he had a divorce at the time, and I would like to thank the people for pointing that out for me. It really helps me improve. Season 7. It was alright. I consider it the weakest of the classic seasons mainly because the music was changed in the US dub for some odd reason. Also, it does have its duds, such as What's the Matter with Henry. I'll eventually make a top 5 worst classic episodes video, but not right away. And the number 1 best classic season of Thomas & Friends is Season 4. I've decided to make this my number 1 favorite season, mainly because it was George Carlin's final season to narrate before going back to his comedy routine, as well as the final season to be part of Shine Time Station. I also love the new characters including the narrow gauge engines, as well as George, Scruffy, and Bulstrode. Though, it is too bad that we will never see some of them again. In addition, I thought the new sets at the time looked absolutely beautiful. For instance, there are some faraway shots of the narrow gauge lines like the viaduct and the cliff sides on the Minnesota Railway. It almost looks like a train spotting video. Not to mention that the Skarloey Railway theme is one of my favorite new themes of that particular season because it's so classical and happy. If I had to pick a favorite episode of Season 4, it would have to be Rock and Roll because I love the character Duncan. He's one of my favorite narrow gauge engines, by the way. And although it was sad that this was George Carlin's final season to narrate, but it will always be my most favorite season of all time because of these reasons. So, what do you think? Do you agree with my list, or do you have your own personal preference? Also, if there's anything I could have elaborated more on, let me know in the comments section below. Join me in next time where I'll be discussing my top 5 worst classic Thomas episodes. This is Trevor Davis, and I hope you have a great day.